and welcome to episode number 14 of the Resilience Reflex show. Well, today we're airing early because my guest is in the UK and they're 7 hours ahead. So I decided to have it at 6 o'clock my time. So guess what time I was up today? 4:30. Yes, 4:30. But most of you know that I like waking up early because that's when I get my work done. So I'm okay with it. But this is what I look like in the morning. No makeup on, but yet looking good. Right, Kathy?
You look beautiful, Zaheen, as always.
All right. So last week we did some hand reflexology, and we told you how you can find the 7 secrets to wellness in the palm of your hand. And I'm sure you enjoyed that show. And if you've been doing reflexology on your hand, I'm sure you'll be noticing how much different you feel. But that's only if you do it every day, not just once a week. It doesn't work, okay? So that was episode number 13. And I encourage you to watch the other episodes before that, because it's all about when you feel stuck, when you feel overwhelmed, when you feel stressed, when you feel anxious. The Resilience Reflex show is what you want to turn to get inspired, to get unstuck, and to bounce back. Okay, so make sure you do that. Make it a habit to watch my show, or make it a marathon. Up to you. Okay, so today we have an amazing guest who has a book coming out tomorrow, and I know he's excited. And I just loved the title of the book. It is Get Rid of Everyday Stress with Cavemen Principles and Enjoy Mammoth Success. Carl, I love the title, but before I bring Carl on, again, I do want to mention that last week I told you that my website manager passed away suddenly, and I am having trouble accessing my website and putting the shows on there. So bear with me. Today, this show will go on YouTube, and I'll offer you the link through my email newsletter. So if you would like to have more information, you can go on to zaheennanji.com, which is my website right there, and enter your email, and you'll also get the gift that you see up here, which is access free audio, 6-part audio series on thriving in the midst of change. And you'll get a lot more information through there. But in the meantime, bear with me while I get the show on there in a month or so. Okay? Okay, here we go. Carl is an amazing person that I met through a campaign that I was doing for my book and he was doing for his book. And I went on his website. I thought, this guy is funny already. He makes me laugh. So here I'm going to say some things about him which made me laugh, okay? That he loves talking as much as he enjoys traveling. He is a trained investigator and negotiator. He is a people watcher because that's how he learns. And aside from speaking and coaching, he is always looking to write another book, and I can relate to that. And he believes everyone has the skills and abilities to accomplish their dreams. And he loves technology, so he's always fiddling around with that and learning new things. And he loves taking notes, so he's always got his notebook and his pen around with him as he goes along. So Carl, welcome to the show.
Hi Zaheen, how are you?
Good, good. So I know it's kind of midday in the UK where you are.
It is, and it's a lovely autumn day as well. We've got blue skies, we've got the leaves coming off the trees. It's absolutely beautiful out there.
Oh, wonderful. So I am amazed at the title of your book. What made you want to write that book, and why did you want to share that knowledge with the viewers and with all of us?
The book, let me start from the beginning. Right from probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I had a massive interest in stress. I was suffering it myself, as colleagues, my peers, my friends, my family. So I thought, let's have a read. Let's try and find out what's going on with the with stress, how it all originates, how it all comes about. And there was no book out there that actually had enough information that I felt comfortable with. A lot of it was very in-depth. It all got very serious. And don't get me wrong, stress is a very serious matter, and it does obviously cause a lot of upset in people's lives. But ultimately, it needed a light-hearted look at it. It needed to be brought back into people's everyday lives. And with the whole principles of how I read and how I understood things and how I put things together myself, I thought it needs something that's going to grab the reader. And bearing in mind that stress actually originates from the caveman, I worked around the whole idea of that, and the book itself pretty much fell together. It was I'm very proud of the branding of the book, the whole concept of how it's come together. And I wouldn't say that's from any skill. That's just from pure luck and how it's all come together. I'm very pleased with it. Thank you.
So then, Carl, when you say that I was so stressed at that time and I was looking for some information, what was causing the stress in your life, if you don't mind me asking?
No, not at all. I'm actually a police officer. That is my job. And I'm sure most people would know that the job that I do is one of the most stressful jobs in the world. And there are others that would disagree with that, but ultimately you're constantly dealing with conflict, you're constantly dealing with negative emotions, you're always dealing with people when they're at their very worst. And on this occasion, certainly when I started to look at all of this, I went through quite a traumatic experience. Police in the UK are not armed, or not routinely armed, I should say. There are armed officers out there, but I am not one of them. I've decided I don't want to carry a gun. And unfortunately, on this occasion, I got sent into a domestic argument, and the gentleman, let's call him, that was there, decided to pull a gun on me, and he shot at me 6 times, and that was for the whole stressful incident, I suppose. That's the trigger of it.
Wow. And so you were shot 6 times.
Shot at. I wasn't hit. There wasn't.
Oh, okay. Whew, I was like, thank God. Okay, that's awesome. I mean, that's not awesome, but that's good to know that you went through that traumatic. I just couldn't imagine, and just going through that situation. Just so you know, last night I was watching the movie Captain Phillips. Have you seen it with Tom Hanks?
I know the film. It's a very moving film. Yes.
Yes.
Again, another traumatic experience,
and he plays it so well, because when he's captured and he's put in the lifeboat, in this small lifeboat at the end, and he's there with 3 or 4 of the hijackers, and it's just traumatic, and I thought, oh, if I was in that, I don't know how I would have been able to handle it. And it's a true story, of course. So thank you for sharing that. Kathy, do you have a question?
I sure do. I also think that's a great title for the book. So I have to ask you, what do cavemen have to do with stress?
Well, before I answer that, Kathy, I do feel a little bit underdressed, so bear with me a moment. Just need to sort myself out here. So, what does caveman have to do with stress? Ultimately, stress is a natural body reaction. It is nothing more, nothing less. And that's the whole idea of my book. The whole concept of it is to keep it simple. Is the book itself, and my whole idea behind stress and the whole idea behind our natural body reaction needs to be brought back to the present day human being out there. We're not all doctors. We don't all want big words. We don't want long information on these things. So ultimately, what I've done is I've brought it back to today, brought it back to everyday situations. So, caveman and stress. Through my research, the cavemen obviously had issues when they were living in their cave. Now, they didn't obviously have issues with mobile phone signals going down, problems with emails coming out, but they did obviously have situations they got themselves in that they needed something a little extra. And so the caveman themselves used to be in the cave, and they used to leave the cave, and when they left the cave they would just be normal people. Their role was obviously to hunt, feed their tribe, and to survive. Now the cavemen themselves needed something extra, as I said. What they did is they developed a button, should we call it. It's a small gland that sits on top of the kidneys. And when anyone feels stressed or threatened, they're able to push that button and a load of adrenaline comes into their system, toxins run around their body. Basically what happens is their mind clears, they become pinpoint focused on the situation and the problem. Their muscles suddenly become toned so that they're able to release vast amounts of energy that's stored in them. That's all from the adrenaline and these toxins. Now this worked very well for the caveman. Of course, when they came face to face with the mammoth, they had two choices. And I'm sure everyone's heard of the fight or flight response. That's exactly what the cavemen did. So if they came face to face with a mammoth and suddenly they wanted to go hunting, well, they obviously needed to have that little extra. And the adrenaline rush that went through their system allowed them to fight and allowed them to either kill, slay, and deal with the mammoth, and so that they could feed their tribe. Now that was one side of it. And the other side was obviously the flight response, which is, oh my word, there's a mammoth there, I'm not going to use this. That mammoth is far too big and all I can do is run away. Same response happened. All the adrenaline and everything, the toxins came through the body, and then they were able to run away, they were able to run faster, longer, greater distances, and obviously to clear themselves away from the danger. That's exactly what happened. So that's obviously the Cavemen Principles of the fight or flight. Describes more details about what happens to the body. I mean, we all know obviously when we get scared or upset or threatened, we start to sweat. We start to focus on the situation, our peripheral vision disappears, we can even start to shake, and that's obviously from the adrenaline rushes that start going through our bodies. There's lots of other things that happen as well. So even though the caveman had it all those many years ago, and bringing it to today's society, you know, we might be a little bit taller, a little bit less hairy, probably got better teeth as well, but ultimately we still have that same button. So yeah, that's the whole principles behind my stress theories, yes.
Wow. So for those of you just joining us, I wanted to share the screen with you and show you his book cover. So just bear with me here. I'm just going to do that. There we go. Share. And we can see it now, Kathy and Carl?
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. So this is what it looks like. It's a yellow cover, and you can see the mammoth, you know, chasing the little caveman. And I encourage you to go to his website. That's Carl Rosier Jones, and I'm going to share that with you again. So bear with me for a minute. So for those of you listening on the podcast, I'll spell that out for you. It is CarlRosier.com. Again, CarlRosier.Jones, CarlRosierJones.com. So you're listening to this, just so you know, we are on a Hangout show that gets turned into a podcast on iTunes. And if you'd like to view the show, then you go to the Resilience Reflex channel on YouTube, or Zaheen Nanji, and you can watch that there. So I know you can't see Carl, but what he has right now is the actual caveman neck, you know, necklace or whatever you want to call it around his neck, and he's got the club. So I know for those of you listening, you can't see that, but it looks amazing. So get his book. It launches tomorrow. Now, Carl, in your book, you talk about CTS. Explain to us what that means.
Certainly. CTS, the Caveman Tribal Sorter. Now, coming obviously into today's modern day human interactions, part of the stressful situations that we experience is from communication and dealing with others. Now, people have always been placed in boxes, at least for 2,000 years. I know people like Hippocrates and Socrates and all those special people from many, many thousands of years ago already started to look at these things. Now, since that time, people have been put into boxes, and people have done different things and different ideas, and you get color wheels, you get all sorts of things. I mean, even looking at most recent ones, beginning of 1900s, you've got Dr. Carl Jung, or Jung, the person that obviously started to, again, put people into boxes. And then we've got the Myers-Briggs people that came in, the mother and daughter team that actually broke down Carl Jung's theories and then spread them out to 16 different boxes. And then since that time, loads of people have obviously put different things together. But again, they all got very complicated and they all became very unwieldy that the average person who is out there aren't able to explain or understand them. So I've looked at all of those theories, I've broken them down, I've had a real good sort of have a feel around, if you like, and I thought, well, in that case then, why don't I have a go? So that's exactly what I've done. I've produced the Caveman tribal sorter that is there and been designed for people to communicate better, explain people's interactions, and also to deal with each other's nuisances, should we call it, the ones that push your button and actually get you to get all the adrenaline inside you and you start to feel those stressful symptoms that the cavemen used to do. So going on from that, the Caveman tribal sorter basically breaks it down into 4 different tribal elements, and they are the hunter, the protector, the gatherer, and the healer. And what each of those characters have are quite unique characteristic traits that are only identifiable in those people. Now, I'm not saying that everyone are hunters or everyone are protectors, but most of us have an element of each of those characters within us. But there will always be one predominant trait. And if we treat that individual on that predominant trait, we will probably get a better response, we'll have better communication, and we'll obviously be able to interact with them much better, so we would understand them more.
Okay, so what you're saying is that we can have all 4, but one of them is our predominant style.
Exactly, and you can identify those styles very easily, and again, using my Caveman tribal sorter, it'll tell you how to identify it. So the first part you need to do is identify the individual, whether they're open or closed. Hopefully that's relatively easy. So when you start talking to somebody, they may give you a response, but if you listen very carefully, you'll be able to hear if there's any emotion, if they're putting more effort into explaining the response, then that probably means that they're quite an open character. So if I was to ask you what you did last night and you said, oh, I went out for a meal with a friend and it was okay, you gave me a response, but it wasn't actually a full response. Whereas someone who's open, if I was to say what happened last night, oh, so I had a brilliant time, I went out with friends, we spoke for hours over the situation, that, you know, I went on holiday last week, I did this, I did that, and they will bring it together, and you suddenly see the difference between an open and a closed character very easily when you start looking at these things.
Okay, gotcha.
So there's your open and closed. And then the other side of the situation is whether they're direct or indirect. And that's very much how they interact with people. So if they have a question to give, a direct person would probably tell you straight out, probably along the lines of, your glasses are wonky. No messing around, get straight to the point and obviously deal with the situation. Whereas a indirect person will say, Zaheen, you're looking lovely. I think you're probably always looking your best, and you might want to. So instead of taking a 5-second conversation, your glasses are wonky, they turn it into a 5-minute conversation, not actually getting to the point and probably working their way around to it. So you have the direct and indirect and the open and closed, and then whichever part you are, so if you're open and closed, direct or indirect, you can then suddenly start putting yourself into the Caveman tribal sorter and seeing what character you are.
Oh, okay. So I'm wondering if in the book you have an assessment in there that makes you want to take some kind of questions, or you just know which one it is. How does the reader know that?
again, very good question. And here's a question for you, and this is hopefully just highlights the issue of all of this. And Kathy, please feel free to give me a response as well. But I'm guessing you both drive, you're both able drivers, you both have a license, and you have a car. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. In which case then, Kathy, just a question for you for the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a good driver?
Yes.
Okay. And coming back to Zaheen, are you a good driver?
Yes.
All right, okay. So everyone has a perception, and that perception is we are always doing everything we can to be the best we can. However, I'm sure you've probably got people that get in your cars, and when you're driving them around, they're very much either holding onto the dashboard, they're holding onto their seat belts, because they don't think you're that good a driver. So we have this perception of ourselves that we are always what we want to see, or how we present ourselves. So that is one of the issues that I try to address. We can all say that, oh no, we're all very open, where in actual fact what we're doing is we're lying to ourselves, and we think our persona of how we present ourselves to society is completely different. So this is how I try to address it. So I think the best person to assess you as whether you're open or closed or direct or indirect is somebody that knows you, you're very close to, and someone who you would trust and are honest with you. This is normally a parent or a very long-term partner that you've grown together, and they no longer want to sort of try and keep you happy because they're happy to tell you the truth.
That's right.
So these people, you can say to them, am I open or closed? And once you ask them those questions and explain to them how to assess you, they'll give you a response. Now you have to live with that, and you have to understand it, and it's not a problem. So if you are closed and you thought you were open, that's not a problem, because again, when you then realize if you're, so for myself, and I'll speak about myself because it's easier, I am a very open person. What you see is what you get. I like to tell you everything that goes on. I like to tell you what colour socks I've got on, which in actual fact today they're grey with a, I think they're a purple top in ones. So, you know, I am quite an open person, and I'm very much like that. And again, also for how I am and what I've done and what I've achieved, I think I'm quite a direct person as well. I would tell you how it is. I wouldn't mess around. I'll get to the point. So that's me, an open and direct person. Now, if I put my character traits into my CTS, my Caveman Tribal Sorter, I come out as a hunter. Now, a hunter has a characteristic trait of basically wanting to have all the attention. I'm not sure whether that's actually showing up here, whether that's true or not, but that's one of my characteristic traits. I like to be in the center of things. I like to talk to people. I like to get into the thick of things. And also part of my character trait is that I'm a forward thinker. I like to go out there and I like to try new things. I'm not interested in reading any rule books, so things like health and safety and things like that bore me. I'd much rather just get on and find out how it's all done. Now, people like me are very good in business, in pushing a business forward, but when it comes to detail, I'm afraid that's something I'm not very good at. I hate detail, I hate reports, and I hate things like that. So, and then all of a sudden, if you suddenly start realizing that if that's my character trait, and of course each of my characters in my Caveman Tribal Sorter has their own traits, then you can start interacting with them better. So hopefully now you know that I don't do detail, but I'd much rather get on and do things. Well, there's no point asking me to write a long report. You want me to actually take action and go out and do things. So what role or what job would you give me in an organization or in a family setting or in a friend setting or in a social setting? You know, you can suddenly start to see how people interact.
Ah, this is interesting. Yeah. And
then with that, of course, you can start dealing with people better. They won't be pushing your button, or they won't be forcing you to push your button. Your communication will suddenly become better because you won't be expecting so much from them. And again, things like myself, I will say I'll do 100 different things, and I'm sure we all know friends, family, and people that we all deal with that you ask them to do something and they say, yes, of course I'll get on and do that, and they never get around to it.
Yeah.
But their intention and their love and their want to do it is overflowing. And they're probably a hunter. They will take on probably 100 different tasks and they get around to doing about 5. So if you understand that of a hunter, of that personal character trait, then when you ask them to do things, you probably know then that they're not really going to get around to do it unless you keep reminding them or nagging them. And that's a trait. Whereas a protector, and a protector is someone who's quite closed. So although they'll answer for you, they wouldn't give you much information. They would just give you a response. And also they're quite a direct character as well. Well, a hunter, they love tasks. A hunter would take on 100 tasks and they would do all those tasks because that's how their mindset is actually been set up within them. Again,
Carl, I find that this is so good information, and I have so many hundreds of questions to ask you, because now I'm thinking, okay, can we use this then for conflict situations? Can we then how do we use this with attracting clients, or how like there's so many, and I'm sure that your book would have all, like, maybe not all the answers, but you would help the reader figure out what they are, but you'd also help the reader figure out if they are an employer, where you would put the person, or in a relationship, how would you be able to handle the relationship? So for example, if my husband is a hunter, but I am a healer or protector, then how would we be able to relate? Kathy, do you have similar thoughts going on in your head?
Yeah, I was going to say, as usual, Zaheen, our show isn't long enough.
Oh yeah.
There's fun. Lots to say. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And yeah. But you have the same kind of questions, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's right. And the one question I wanted to ask was, how do I personally control my mammoth, like that? I assume that is on the cover of your book. Is that right?
Well,
is that what
mammoths? Yeah, my book comes with a couple of different areas where the mammoth comes in, and again, the whole book is based around the caveman thing. So at the beginning, we talk about the stressed mammoth. That's that there's an angry mammoth and a happy mammoth. Now, the mammoths themselves, in today's society, people think are extinct. Well, they're not. They've just had to adapt just like us. We've introduced the freeze response into modern day caveman because we're not allowed to fight or flight anymore, because either we're going to get attacked or something's going to happen. So the mammoth themselves has also adapted, and they are now just sneaky little blighters. They hide, and I'm sure we all know how we can start identifying mammoths, but not until it's pointed out. So when we get that email, and I'm sure this is one for you, Kathy, if your boss was suddenly to send you an email and say, Kathy, can I see you in my office? And that's it. No other information, no other details. I'm sure you suddenly go, what's going on here? That's your mammoth. Your mammoth has hidden in your boss's email. They'll show themselves for a fraction of a second and then they'll scarper off and hide. But that's enough for you to push your button and for all that adrenaline to start going around your system. So that's your first part of the book, the stress part, is trying to identify where these mammoths can hide and what can trigger it. Because I'm sure if you were to lean over to a friend of yours sat to your right or to your left in your workplace, and you ask them, could you read this email, they wouldn't get that same response. The mammoth is already hidden. They'll just say, oh, the boss just wants to see you. They wouldn't actually feel that same emotion that you had felt. So there's your first part, is identifying your mammoth. To control your mammoth comes into the third part of the book, which is all about change management. And this is how we all go through change. So things like everyone wants to either give up smoking, lose weight, get fitter, change their jobs, want suddenly more money, suddenly want to be this, that, and everything else. And there's loads of different things that people want to change about their lives. Whereas the third part of the book is about change management. And that explains how the caveman herder actually controls his mammoth to take him from our original destination of where we are at the moment to the final destination of where the change has actually taken place. They are actually a solid foundation of what we do every day. So if we want to give up smoking, mammoth is sat at the moment, sat probably on a sofa having a cigarette. Whereas what the caveman herder needs to do is guide that mammoth through a different path, reaching each individual milestones, checking off as he goes to make sure that what is going on, the mammoth isn't getting skittish about, because again, the pet mammoth can be quite skittish and quite upset by things. So the herder has to make sure he guides it, not pull it, because again, that's basically willpower. So if you can imagine what willpower is like, people say, I'm going to give up smoking, and they probably manage 3 or 4 days, and then they're suddenly, I'll just have one. Well, that's willpower. So imagine that's your herder with a rope around the neck of the mammoth, trying to drag this mammoth to this new destination. Well, that mammoth is what, 3 tons in body weight, and the caveman's probably 200 pounds if he's lucky. Well, we all know pretty much who's going to win that fight. And the caveman's just going to run out of energy, he's just going to give up, he's going to let go of the rope, and all of a sudden, the mammoth is just going to get back to his comfortable rut, back on the sofa and light up another cigarette. And that's exactly what our energy that we have within us actually comes from for our willpower.
Wow, this is really interesting, Kathy, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. And you know what? We have been having so much fun, listening to you that time's up. But I'm sure that once I read the book that is coming out tomorrow, and it's being launched tomorrow, so I do want to order it. Is it on Amazon, by the way, Carl, or it's only through your website?
It's both. It's on Amazon. My publisher has been very kind to me. He's put it in all the major booksellers as well. So certainly in the UK, people like Warpstones, W.H. Smiths, all the big book companies are doing it. But also I've been told it is going around the world as well. So I'm in Canada, US, Australia, America, whoever is their book supplier can actually buy it through the book chain that my publishers put it through. It is on Amazon. If you type in the Cavemen Principles in the search, or even my name, that will come up. So, yeah, all available for you. Or if you want to buy it through my website, please feel free as well. But postage from me to the US, maybe a little bit. Canada, maybe a bit more.
And then you have to remember that we're in Canada, which is even further. So it's more expensive. So that's why I asked, because I'm sure a lot of people would want to know more about their profile, or would want to know, okay, how do I handle a situation so that I can manage my stress? And you're not saying that, oh, you can get rid of your stress, but you're telling people how to manage their stress so that they can have everyday success, correct?
Very much so. Now, stress is just a natural body reaction, and we make it far too complicated. So what we need to do is we need to get rid of all the rubbish that people's filled our brains with, understand it from a real basic principle, get yourself a club, and sort out the problem. I may sound like I'm trivializing it, but I'm not. It really is a simple human body reaction that just needs to be understood. Once we understand it, then yeah, we can pretty much deal with stress. We can deal with a lot of things.
Wonderful. So Kathy, did you have any final remarks or questions or comments?
No, I just want to say I've got to get your book, Carl, because I want to know more about the CTS.
Yeah, me too.
That's very interesting. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, ladies. And of course,
best of luck with your book.
Thank you. And if anyone's got any questions, they can email me, they can contact me. I love talking about this thing. And you did warn all your readers right at the beginning that I actually like the sound of my own voice, that I like to talk. Well, hopefully I haven't let myself down here, and I fulfilled my promise of liking to talk about a lot of things. So thank you.
No, you've done a great job. So for everyone who is viewing the Hangout, this is the website here, carlrosierjones.com. And for those of you listening on the podcast, it's CarlRosierJones.com. You can go on his website, check out his blog. It's funny. I love the last one that you wrote about your son, which is amazing. And make sure you get his book. Like he said, it's on Amazon, so you can get that for sure. Again, it was another fun-filled episode for me and Kathy. And Kathy, thank you again for coming up. early in the morning for you too. And episode number 15 is next, and that's going to be with my guest who has been a 4-time cancer survivor. That is the symbol of resilience. She was first diagnosed at the age of 14. She's now 47. 4-time cancer survivor. So you want to hear her story. And until then, enjoy. And like I said, watch the other episodes. Make it a marathon if you like. And until then, God bless. Goodbye.